Imagine this, a man who defined grace, elegance, and perfection in dance, a legend whose name became synonymous with Hollywood's golden age, steps onto a set one last time. But this isn't the glittering stage of a grand musical or the polished floors of a classic film studio. No, this is something entirely unexpected, a cheap sci-fi TV show set in space. This is the story of Fred Astaire's final performance, a moment hidden from the world for years, now revealed, and it's as heartwarming as it is heartbreaking. Stick with me because this isn't just about a dance, it's about a man, his legacy, and the love he had for his family. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll see why Fred Astaire wasn't just a dancer, he was magic. Let's rewind a bit. Fred Astaire, born Frederick Austerlitz in Omaha, Nebraska in 1899, didn't start as the suave, debonair star we all know. His parents, German-Austrian immigrants, had dreams of a better life, and they saw potential in their children. Fred's older sister, Adele, was the first to show a natural talent for singing and dancing. Fred, on the other hand, wasn't initially interested, but as he watched Adele practice, something clicked. He began copying her steps, and before long, he was just as good, if not better. Their mother, recognizing their potential, made a bold decision. In 1905, when Fred was just 6 years old, the family packed up and moved to New York City so the children could train professionally. It wasn't easy. They had little money, no connections, and their father lost his job soon after the move. But Fred and Adele persevered, enrolling in the Alvine Master School of the Theater and Academy of Cultural Arts. Fred didn't just learn to dance. He picked up instruments like the piano, accordion, and clarinet, skills that would later make him a more versatile performer. By 1917, Fred and Adele made their Broadway debut in Over the Top, a patriotic revue during World War I. Their charm, humor, and flawless dance routines quickly won over audiences. But it was their 1924 performance in Lady Be Good that truly catapulted them to stardom. The show, featuring songs by George and Ira Gershwin, introduced a jazz-influenced style that felt fresh and sophisticated. Critics praised them for their grace and humor, and soon they were one of the most exciting sibling acts on Broadway. But as Adele grew taller than Fred, their performances began to look awkward. Strict child labor laws added to their challenges, forcing the family to take a 2-year break from show business. When they returned, they were more polished than ever, studying new dance styles under renowned instructor Aurelio Coccia. Adele's natural charm still won audiences over, but Fred's technical skill became more refined. His movements were smooth, sharp, and perfectly timed. Over time, he started standing out in a way that even Adele couldn't match. In 1932, Adele retired from performing to marry Lord Charles Cavendish, the son of the Duke of Devonshire. It was the end of an era. Fred, who had spent nearly his whole life dancing beside his sister, now had to step into the spotlight alone. At first, the adjustment wasn't easy, but it opened new doors for him. His first major solo success came that same year with Gay Divorce, a show that introduced a romantic dance style that would later define his Hollywood career. It was also during this time that he collaborated with Cole Porter on Night and Day, a performance that would become one of his most famous. Fred Astaire arrived in Hollywood in 1933, ready to prove himself. But his first screen test at RKO Pictures didn't go well. The feedback was brutal. Can't sing, can't act, slightly balding, can dance a little. A review like that could have ended his career before it started, but Astaire didn't let it. David O. Selznick, the producer who signed him, wasn't completely convinced either. He wrote in a memo that Astaire had enormous ears and a bad chin line, but admitted there was something about him. His charm is so tremendous that it comes through even on this wretched test. That charm would soon make him one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. His first film appearance came that same year in Dancing Lady, where he danced alongside Joan Crawford. It wasn't a big role, but it got him noticed. When he returned to RKO, he was cast in Flying Down to Rio. He wasn't the lead. He had fifth billing. But when he stepped onto the screen, everything changed. Critics called him distinctly likable and said that as a dancer, he remained in a class by himself. Audiences loved him. Hollywood had just found its new star. That film also introduced something else, his partnership with Ginger Rogers. They weren't the main attraction in Flying Down to Rio, but their dance together stole the show. Their performance of the karaoke, where they danced with their foreheads touching, became an instant hit. At first, Astaire wasn't interested in teaming up again. He had spent years dancing with his sister Adele on stage and wanted to work solo. He even wrote to his agent saying, "I will not have it. I did not go into pictures to be teamed with her or anyone else." But audiences wanted more, and the studio pushed for it. Between 1933 and 1939, Astaire and Rogers starred in 9 films together, including The Gay Divorce, 1934, Top Hat, 1935, and Swing Time, 1936. Their chemistry was effortless, their routines felt like magic. Katharine Hepburn once described their appeal perfectly. He gives her class, and she gives him sex appeal. Their films weren't just popular, they were massive box office hits. 6 of their 9 RKO musicals were among the studio's highest-grossing films at the time, but their influence went beyond ticket sales. Astaire, along with choreographer Hermes Pond, changed the way dance was used in film. It wasn't just about impressive footwork, it was storytelling. Every step, every movement, every routine had meaning. 2 of their most iconic films, Top Hat, 1935, and Swing Time, 1936, showcased everything that made them great. In Top Hat, Astaire played Jerry Travers, an American dancer who falls for Dale Tremont, played by Rogers. The film featured Irving Berlin's classic songs, including Cheek to Cheek and Top Hat, White Tie, and Tails. One of the most famous scenes showed Astaire using his cane like a gun, miming the act of shooting down a chorus line. Even for him, it was a challenge. It took multiple takes to get right, even though he usually preferred long, unbroken shots. The film became a huge success. It was the second highest-grossing movie of 1935 and was later recognized by the Library of Congress as culturally significant. Then came Swing Time. Many critics consider it their best film together. It included unforgettable numbers like Pick Yourself Up and Never Gonna Dance. That last routine was one of the most difficult they ever filmed. It took 47 takes to perfect. The precision, the emotion, the sheer effort behind every movement made it one of the most memorable dance sequences in history. Astaire was a perfectionist. He didn't just perform, he controlled everything. He worked on choreography, influenced music composition, and made sure the camera angles captured every step the right way. Unlike modern musicals that rely on quick cuts, he believed dance should be filmed in full-body shots with as few edits as possible. Even his tap sounds had to be flawless. After 1935's Roberta, he started re-recording all his taps in post-production. No one else in Hollywood was doing that. His rehearsals were just as intense. He started preparing months in advance and required 6 extra weeks of rehearsals, practicing from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. Ginger Rogers once joked about how sore her feet were from endlessly rehearsing in high heels. After his legendary run with Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire kept dancing and found new partners who could match his style. One of his most memorable collaborations was with Rita Hayworth in You Were Never Lovelier, 1942. The film had all the charm of a classic Hollywood romance, with Astaire playing an American dancer mistaken for a secret admirer of Maria Acuna, played by Hayworth. But what made it truly special was their chemistry. Astaire often called Hayworth his favorite dance partner, praising her natural grace and ability to match his footwork. Rehearsing for the film wasn't always glamorous. They practiced in a room above a funeral parlor and had to stop whenever a procession passed by. It was an unusual setting for 2 of Hollywood's most elegant dancers, but they made it work. When the cameras rolled, their performances looked effortless. Astaire also worked with Judy Garland in Easter Parade, 1948, a film that almost didn't happen for him. Gene Kelly was supposed to star, but injured himself before filming began. With Kelly out, Astaire stepped in. He had retired briefly in 1946, but returned for this project, and it turned out to be a massive success. The film became the highest-grossing musical of 1948, featuring unforgettable numbers like Stepping Out with My Baby. On screen, Garland and Astaire were a perfect match. She had a warm, lively energy that balanced his refined style. Behind the scenes, things were more complicated. Garland struggled with personal issues, and the film went through changes in leadership. But despite the challenges, the final product became one of MGM's most beloved musicals. By the mid-1940s, Astaire thought he was ready to leave Hollywood. During the filming of Blue Skies, 1946, he announced his retirement and even chose Pudding on the Ritz as his farewell number. But retirement didn't last long. 2 years later, Easter Parade pulled him back. And over the next decade, he starred in some of his most celebrated films. One of them was The Bandwagon, 1953. directed by Vincente Minnelli. Astaire played Tony Hunter, a fading star trying to reinvent himself. It was a fitting role for him at the time. Hollywood was changing, and Astaire had to prove he could still shine. The film featured one of his most iconic performances, dancing. In the Dark, a duet with Sid Charisse in Central Park. Even at 54, Astaire moved with the same grace and precision that had made him a star decades earlier. Then came Funny Face, 1957, where he danced alongside Audrey Hepburn. The film blended fashion, romance, and Parisian charm. Astaire played a photographer who turns Hepburn's character into a model. Their age difference was noticeable, but their chemistry worked. The choreography was designed to complement Hepburn's delicate style while still allowing Astaire to lead. Numbers like Let's Kiss and Makeup prove that he could evolve with the times. His performances in these films weren't just comebacks, they were reinventions. He was proving that no matter how much Hollywood changed, he would always find a way to stay relevant. Beyond the silver screen, Astaire wanted to share his love for dance in a new way. In 1947, he co-founded Fred Astaire Dance Studios in New York City with Charles Casanova Sr., a retired motion picture executive. The goal was to bring professional dance instruction to the public. The studio was an immediate success and soon expanded into a global franchise. Today, there are over 250 locations worldwide. Astaire personally helped design the studio's programs, making sure they met his high standards. He believed great dancers weren't born, but trained, and he wanted to make sure anyone could learn. His curriculum covered everything from ballroom classics like the waltz and tango to Latin, dances such as salsa and cha-cha. Unlike traditional dance schools, his studios combined private lessons with group practice, creating a friendly environment for students. Fred Astaire spent most of his career dazzling audiences with his dance moves. But in the 1960s, he took on a new challenge. He stepped away from musicals and into dramatic roles, something few expected from a man so deeply tied to Hollywood's golden age of dance. His biggest breakthrough in this shift came in The Towering Inferno, 1974. This disaster film, directed by John Gillerman, featured an all-star cast, including Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, and Faye Dunaway. Astaire played Harley Claiborne, a charming con man with a heart. Unlike the slick, confident characters he often played, Claiborne was vulnerable, showing a depth that caught audiences by surprise. His performance was so powerful that he earned his first and only Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win, but the recognition was long overdue. He did, however, win the BAFTA Award for Best Actor in a Supporting Role and the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. The Towering Inferno was the highest-grossing film of 1974, making over $203 million worldwide. It was packed with action, fire, and suspense, but Astaire's role added something different. In a movie built on spectacle, his character brought real emotion. Critics praised the way he portrayed grief, especially in the scenes where his character mourns the loss of his love interest, played by Jennifer Jones. Some felt his nomination wasn't just about this role, it was a way for the industry to finally acknowledge his impact on cinema. Even in a genre that wasn't his specialty, he proved he could hold his own alongside some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Astaire had already been reinventing himself long before this. In 1958, he made history with An Evening with Fred Astaire, a one-hour television special that aired live on NBC on October 17th. It wasn't just another variety show, it was the first major television special recorded on videotape in color. This was groundbreaking at the time. Astaire, always a perfectionist, made sure it was a production to remember. He performed with Barry Chase, whom he later called one of his favorite dance partners, and the show featured music from the Jonah Jones Quartet and David Rose's orchestra. The special was a massive success, winning 9 Emmy Awards, including Best Single Performance by an Actor. The response was so strong that it led to 3 more specials in the years that followed. Directed by Bud Yorkin and co-produced by Astaire himself, the show blended dance and music in a way that felt fresh and exciting. It also reflected the changing landscape of entertainment. Chrysler, recognizing the power of television, became a major sponsor, featuring their cars in the broadcast. At 59, Astaire proved he was still a force in the industry, adapting to new formats and continuing to amaze audiences. But if there was one moment that truly defined his ability to push the limits of performance, it was his famous dance sequence in Royal Wedding, 1951. In this MGM musical, directed by Stanley Donen, Astaire performed You're All the World to Me, a routine where he appeared to dance on the walls and ceiling of a room. Audiences had never seen anything like it. The effect was created using a rotating barrel set, a massive steel structure that turned while the camera and cameraman were strapped into rigs that moved with it. The furniture and props were bolted down or magnetized to keep them in place. This complex setup created the illusion that Astaire was floating effortlessly from the floor to the walls and then onto the ceiling. The number was so ahead of its time that decades later, Lionel Richie recreated it for his 1986 music video Dancing on the Ceiling. Even today, the sequence is considered one of the most innovative dance moments in film history. 15 years earlier, in Swing Time, 1936, Astaire and Hermes Pan created another groundbreaking moment with the shadow dance. This time, the innovation came from special effects. During rehearsals, Pan noticed how the stage lights cast multiple shadows of Astaire. That sparked an idea. What if Astaire didn't just dance with his own reflection, but with multiple versions of himself? To make it work, filmmakers used optical effects. First, Astaire danced in front of a blank screen while strong lights cast shadows. These shadows were then filmed separately and optically tripled. Finally, the pre-recorded shadows were combined with footage of Astaire dancing live. The shoot lasted 3 days, but the final product was worth it. The shadow dance became one of the most memorable moments in Astaire's career. It also earned Hermes Pan an Academy Award nomination for Best Dance Direction. Fred Astaire was more than just a dancer. His life off-screen had love, heartbreak, passion, and even battles over his legacy. In 1933, Astaire married Phyllis Livingston Potter, a New York socialite with a young son from a previous marriage. They met at a golf luncheon, a casual meeting that led to a lifelong partnership. They had 2 children together, Fred Jr. in 1936 and Ava in 1942. During these years, Astaire's career was at its peak. He starred in Top Hat in 1935 and Swing Time in 1936, films that defined Hollywood's golden era. His dancing looked effortless, but his personal happiness played a role in that ease. His family life gave him stability. Then in 1954, everything changed. Phyllis was diagnosed with lung cancer. She passed away at just 46 years old. Astaire was shattered. He was in the middle of filming Daddy Longlegs in 1955 and nearly walked away from the role. He couldn't imagine performing without her support. For decades after her passing, he stayed single, focusing on his children and career. But life had another surprise waiting. In 1980, at 81 years old, Astaire remarried. His new wife was Robin Smith, a professional jockey 45 years younger than him. Their shared love for horse racing brought them together. Smith had made history in 1972 as the first female jockey to ride for Alfred Gwynne Vanderbilt Jr., and even appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Despite their age gap, their connection was real. They stayed together until Astaire's passing in 1987. He died in her arms at the age of 88. Outside of Hollywood, Astaire had passions that few people knew about. He was obsessed with horse racing and golf. He owned stables, attended races, and stayed deeply involved in the sport. His love for horses wasn't just a pastime. It shaped his life, even leading him to Robin. Golf was just as important. He played whenever he could, whether on set breaks or social outings. His love for the game was so strong that it was at a golf event where he first met Phyllis. Fred Astaire spent his life dancing across movie screens. His steps were light, his movements effortless. For decades, he set the standard for grace in Hollywood. But when he made his final on-screen dance appearance, it wasn't in a classic musical. It was on Battlestar Galactica, a science fiction TV show set in space. The episode, The Man with 9 Lives, aired on January 28, 1979. Astaire was 80 years old. He played Captain Dimitri, a smooth-talking con man pretending to be Starbuck's long-lost father. It was a surprising role for a man known for elegance, yet he fit right in. Even in a futuristic setting, he brought a touch of old Hollywood charm. Astaire didn't seek out the role for himself. His grandchildren loved Battlestar Galactica and often talked about it. Their excitement made him curious. Instead of just watching with them, he called producer Donald P. Bellisario to ask if there was a part for him. Bellisario was stunned. He reportedly said, "Mr. Astaire, I will write a 2-hour episode around you." The episode ended up being 1 hour, but it gave Astaire a chance to do what he did best: dance. At first, he wasn't sure about it. He hadn't danced on screen in years. Age had slowed him down, and he didn't want to disappoint anyone. But when the cameras rolled, he stepped onto the set with actress Anne Jeffries, who played Chameleon's love interest, and performed one last dance. The routine was short and simple, nothing like the dazzling numbers he was known for. Still, it was filled with grace. Every movement carried the elegance that made him a legend. Jeffries became the last woman to dance with him on screen, securing her own place in Hollywood history. For the scene, Astaire wore a space-themed costume with an ascot, an accessory he likely chose himself. It was a small detail, but it mattered. Even in a world of spaceships and futuristic settings, he remained himself. His appearance on Battlestar Galactica wasn't about reviving his career. It was for his grandchildren. It was his way of stepping into their world and making them smile. That made it more than just a television moment. It was a farewell to his audience, a quiet goodbye to the art he had mastered. 8 years later, on June 26, 1987, Fred Astaire passed away at the age of 88. The cause was pneumonia. The world lost not just a dancer, but a man who had changed entertainment forever. The tributes came immediately. President Ronald Reagan called him a legend. Mikhail Baryshnikov said he was perfection. Gene Kelly, his longtime friend and rival, honored a man who set the highest standards. Irving Berlin, who had written songs for Astaire, described him as irreplaceable. But the most touching tribute came from Astaire himself. In his final moments, he turned to his wife, Robin Smith, and made a simple request. He asked her to tell his fans how much they had always meant to him. Even at the end, he was thinking about the people who had supported him, the ones who had watched him dance and believed, if only for a moment, that magic was real. Even after he passed, Astaire's name became the center of controversy. In 1997, 10 years after his death, a vacuum cleaner commercial used a digitally altered version of him dancing. Fans were furious. Astaire had been clear about his wishes. He had included specific clauses in his will to prevent anyone from using his image for advertisements or unauthorized biographical portrayals. He once said, "I have no particular desire to have my life misinterpreted." His widow, Robin, fought hard to protect his legacy. She filed lawsuits to stop companies from using his likeness without permission. But the issue wasn't just about him. It sparked a larger debate about digital recreations of deceased artists. Some argued that it was a way to introduce legends to new audiences. Others believed it was a violation of their memory. Fred Astaire's final performance may have been hidden for years, but now it's online for the world to see. It's a reminder of his humility, his love for his family, and the timeless elegance he brought to every step. So, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join me as we uncover more hidden gems from the world of entertainment. Because stories like this, they're worth sharing. And remember, legends like Fred Astaire don't just leave behind a legacy, they leave behind magic.